Good morning, everyone. I am Kelly, and I will be doing the Bible reading today. And it is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 to 9. These are the commands, degrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on your doorframes of your houses and on your gates.
All right, for the next few minutes, we're just going to be looking a bit about those words, which Kelly read for us. But I want to start by asking a question, and this is fun because it's going to highlight the fact that we're all different ages. We're going to talk about tennis, and who were the superstars when you were like growing up? So just go for it. Shout out. Who were like the heroes of your? Who likes tennis, first of all? Oh, there was two. Wow, you guys were right in. Okay. So back in the day, or if you love tennis today, just give me like a Jimmy Connors, Bjorn Borg. Oh, you're much more engaging than the first service. This is good. Roger Federer, Pete Sampras. There's one other here. McEnroe. Are you serious? You cannot be serious. That's McEnroe. Okay, McEnroe. So anyone else? Andy Murray. Natina Bracken. How do you say that one? Natina Navratilova, that's right. Rafael Nadal. The Williams sisters. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Wow. You're like, I went to church and they talk about tennis. Okay. One of my favorite was Nadal before he retired. Not goodness, someone said Nadal. Federer before he retired. There's just something about the cool Swiss, right? He's so composed. Roger Federer said, hard work and dedication are the foundation of success. Hard work and dedication are the foundation of success. I read this week that Roger Federer, when he was like 12 years old, he had to choose between whether he wanted to be a professional tennis player or soccer player. One of those annoying types in life. They're good at everything and really nice at the same time. Oh, hate those people. But Federer, 12 years old, he was obviously good enough, natural ability in these two sports, that he was faced with the decision, am I going to be a tennis player or a soccer player? It made me think, now we know that he chose tennis, but it made me think, how many 12-year-olds, what are they like this height? How many 12-year-olds were like lined up next to him with this innate natural ability to swing a racket and the ball do exactly what they wanted to do? How many other tennis players at roughly 12 or 13 were just like Federer? Natural talent is obviously incredibly important when it comes to being a professional athlete, but this word that he uses, this dedication, is essential for that kind of success. There's actually lots of examples of really gifted, naturally gifted people lacking dedication, kind of missing dedication, and then they kind of fade away as quickly as they've arrived. It's an interesting word, isn't it? This dedication. Generally, we know the word to describe the quality of being dedicated to something, like a cause or a task. You could say that, this person is really dedicated to their job or to their family, or they're like very committed. But what I love about the Britannica dictionary describes another understanding and interpretation of this word dedication. And it says this: dedication is the act of officially saying that something is created for a particular purpose. It's the act of officially saying that something was created for a particular purpose. You see, when we come to talk and think about today, we're sitting in a church. And when we think about dedicating ourselves to God, and the families who've dedicated their kids to God today, they're not primarily saying, I am going to work and have success in bringing my kids up to be followers of Jesus or living like Jesus. It's not primarily about that kind of dedication, like join us as we do this and we're going to make success out of this. It's not what the word's about. What this word means in this context of dedicating our kids and ourselves to God is being able to say, I and my kids are created for a particular purpose. And what is that purpose? We believe as Christians that the purpose that we are created for is relationship with God. It's for relationship with God. Whatever we accomplish and do in our lives, it's worth celebrating. People work hard at something, that's fantastic. If your kids make it through and they make much of themselves, they've got a great faith, that's fantastic. But our primary purpose is not to celebrate success, it's for relationship with God. And it's the same for these parents who stood today, and they stood in front of all of you, and they were like, help. Help us raise our kids. What for? It's so that these kids would know that their particular purpose, the reason that God's put them on the earth, is to have a relationship and to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond anything they can do, beyond all their wanderings and failures and whatever, like they're loved. They're loved by God and by the parents. They're loved, they're special. Their purpose is for relationship, to be loved. I just want to highlight a couple of things in this chapter in Deuteronomy, which is a book in the Old Testament. It's full of rules and laws, but it's super interesting. And this book that we call Deuteronomy is kind of written in three big chunks. The first kind of 4 chapters or so, it's what God has done for his people. Then the middle section, much longer, kind of chapters 4 to 26, so like lots of content, is what God expects of his people. And then the end of it is like what God's going to do for his people. So like what he's done, what he's going to do. And then the middle section is all this stuff about like what God expects of us, what he wants from us. And it's interesting, it's kind of sandwiched between, and this middle part is really extensive. It's like really detailed. And our verses that we read today in chapter 6, verses 1 to 9, these verses in their place within this book, they come right after God has given his people the 10 commandments. You might have heard of those. If you don't do church normally, that's something you might have heard of, the 10 commandments. It's like, here's how I really want you to live. Here's some guidelines, here's some instructions. And if like me, like I grew up in the church, but I kind of grew up with an understanding of God being a bit of a taskmaster. And especially these 10 instructions are a bit like, don't mess up or I'm going to slap you back into place. That was kind of the feeling I had growing up in church. It was like, these are rules you do not mess with. And it felt like it was a bit like just a bunch of do's and don'ts. And that doesn't fill me with joy. That didn't fill me with much enthusiasm or excitement for being around church. But here's the thing. Growing up, I didn't read the verses that we read today. I didn't understand them. I didn't absorb them. And because our verses today really help us with these 10 commandments, which God has set in place of like, live this way. And because these verses that we read today are kind of like, it's kind of like the subtext, or it's like the manual for understanding the 10 commandments. These 10 commandments, he says basically what I've just told you, he doesn't say live by them or I'm going to wipe you off the face of the earth. What he says immediately following these, he says this, hey, let them be on your heart. Impress them upon your kids. You know, when you get up, when you sit, when you walk, when you have dinner, when you go for a stroll, when you go to sleep, when you wake up first thing in the morning, talk about them. It goes on and it says, like, so that you remember these commandments, tie them as symbols in your hands, bind them on your foreheads. It's kind of imagery to talk about, like, be ever remembering that these are God's truths for you. And then it says, even write them on the door frames of your houses. And if your youth or your kids are scribbling on your door frames later, it's okay, it's biblical, they're allowed. You see the thing, I love these descriptors of how we're meant to understand the 10 Commandments, how we're meant to understand God's kind of guidelines, rules, and hopes for us as we live. Because I always understood them to be kind of like God ramming his truth down our throats, a bit like, you got to do this, and it all felt a bit heavy, to be honest. Ben was speaking last week, and he just said this. He's like, God isn't in the business of ramming truth down people's throats. And I want to say this, God is in the business not of that, and that's not the kind of church we are. God is in the business of calling and captivating our hearts to freely choose, as a choice, to freely choose to follow his commands, to live as he would want us, not feeling like, ugh, but more like, oh, what a gift, what a choice. It's not forceful language, and the language around dedication should not be understood to be like a forceful attempt to succeed in your Christian faith. It should be this understanding of, oh my goodness, when I dedicate my kids to the Lord and when I dedicate myself to God, it's this understanding of, I'm just kind of coming back to my original purpose. He designed me for relationship. It would be crazy to think, I'm going to mention the Roman gladiators and what's the name of that movie? Hunger Games. Who knows about the Roman gladiators and your Colosseum and all that? Who knows about the book, The Hunger Games, and the movies, the series? Oh, actually, more of you know about Hunger Games. Interesting. Here's the thing. Our verses today kind of give us an understanding of how we're meant to understand these rules that God gives. That it's not God like just demanding this of us, and if we mess up, then we're meant to just like, he's just going to be really mad at us, or even like we're meant to have these rules that are so rigid and so hard, and then we're meant to be joyful about them. And it's in the same way with the gladiators. Like there was this culture at the time of like, hey, you know what? This is the rule of our day, and you're going to go in and you're going to fight to the death. And at the same time, can you put on a show for us? Can you somehow look joyful as if this is an honor? It's weird, right? It wouldn't make, God's not like that. And with the Hunger Games, if you've seen it or read the books, there's the Capitol, and the leaders, they're kind of like, what an honor for you to come and go into these arenas and fight to the death. It's such an honor for you. And can you please put on these fancy clothes and like strut about and make it look like this is a great honor to die in front of all these people? God's not like that. It's just not, he's not like that. It's not like, here's a bunch of commands that are impossible to follow, and I'm going to ram down your throat, and then we fail, and we're meant to be joyful about it, looking like fake Christians running. It's just not the picture. It's not the picture. Because these verses tell us it's much more about the heart. It's not about like our success in this. It's about like, oh my goodness, I'm built for relationship. I'm built to like enjoy him. And it changes everything. And these verses are like, let them dwell in your heart, inspire these truths with your kids. And for us, it's like when you're at breakfast, just talk about it. We've done different things over the years. And this isn't just for kids. This is for you if you're married or if you're single. Or like we used to have like a prayer jar, and we just like try to introduce the kids to like thinking about their relationship and their kind of key primary purpose is this relationship with God. So we'd be praying for their friends, praying for situations they're worried about. And we've done different things over the years at different times that just really try to center and soften our hearts on the relationship that God wants for us. Tucking them into bed at night, having a heart-to-heart. Each of us can do everything in our power not to be a successful Christian, but just to lean in to the relationship that God wants for us. Here's the thing, we get this language about tying things around our hands and tying things around our foreheads. And that's like, in that context, they would have a little pack and they'd have scriptures that would hang from their foreheads. And the idea being that you look across these truths every day, and hopefully your life is like governed by some of these rules and regulations. And here's the thing, I don't know what the equivalent is for you. Maybe you've got a post-it note on your mirror and it just says like, God loves you. Maybe Maybe on your fridge you get a magnet and there's something encouraging and inspiring that kind of draws you back to the relationship, that what I'm here for, this primary purpose, is so that God can let us know how much he cares for us and he loves us. Maybe if you drive really fast, you want something in your car that just says, like Psalm 23, like slow down. Whatever the thing is, these are helpful reminders. These are good ideas. But here's the thing, folks. There's an even greater way of being reminded, and there's an even greater way of coming back to that primary purpose of why we're here. It's by just trusting Jesus. It's by trusting Jesus that all the reminders are good, but he's not external helping us. He's within us as we choose to accept Jesus and say, I need your help in this. And as parents, it's one of those things you're like, I need help in this. And so it's not living a life of perfection, because you're never going to do that, but it's this idea of a direction that Jesus continually helps us, starts with us, draws us back to our primary purpose, and then from there helps our kids with their primary purpose, just being those who are loved by God. When we follow Jesus, when we trust him, when we accept that we can't actually follow these rules because they're just too tricky. There's even with all context in the verse, God's people showed in the, like, literally from like here, the rest of all this, it's like God's people, their attempt to kind of follow and obey and do everything they can to like live like God's people. And in the end, Jesus was like, there has to be a sacrifice so that they don't have to live so strict according to every single detail. They need to live in relationship with me rather than being stuck on every single little detail. A lot of the rest of Scripture actually kind of unpacks these 10 rules, but then kind of makes it, now you, maybe because you messed up this way, now you got to go do this. And so the whole thing kind of comes to this climax in the Bible of going, this is impossible. And instead, Jesus goes, I'm here to make it possible. I'm here to make the relationship that you were designed for possible. And he came and he took on, just like us, he lived the life that we live. Normal guy, walking around, and yet he was God's son. He came, he showed us the way, but then he actually made the way for us possible. He died for us, taking all the mess that we all make in our lives, all the attempts to maybe live this way that God would have us do. And he's just like, it's okay. I'm just going to like scoop it all up. I don't want you to be burdened by that anymore, because you're designed for a relationship. And through me and in me, you can actually experience that relationship with God. A couple of weeks ago, or 2 Saturdays ago, we were gathering in this room with all of our volunteers who do stuff for the church. It was really cool. Had amazing Mexican food, played some games. It was really good fun. And I just shared real quickly, there's another part in the Bible, much further on in the New Testament, and Jesus is chatting with a couple of sisters, Martha and Mary. And there's this really interesting story in the New Testament where Jesus, like the one who kind of perfects for us this life of living with your primary purpose as someone who's got a relationship with God. He did it perfectly. And here's Jesus in this moment with these 2 sisters, and Martha has invited Jesus into the house. Come and stay with us, Jesus, and all your disciples. And then Martha's getting real busy. She's like sorting things out. She's like making sure everything is perfect and everything's just in the right place. And she's stressing that everything isn't right and in place. And she's kind of you kind of feel it simmering as you read, she's kind of getting a little bit mad at her sister, Mary. And what's Mary doing? Mary's like piecing out with Jesus. She's like, Jesus, you're awesome. I know my primary purpose is just to hang out with you, have a relationship with you. And Mary's like, oh, I can't believe it. And you kind of imagine she's like putting the teapot down like this, and don't you hear me? She's kind of making all this fuss, and she's like banging around, I'm imagining. And she's like, she's so annoying. Mary is so annoying. Jesus, can you tell her? Can you see my dedication? Can you tell her? And Jesus, he says it twice to kind of just like chill her out. He's like, Martha, take a pill, just chill. And she's like, you can imagine, she's like, what are you going to say that's going to make a difference? Tell her. Jesus, surprisingly, like the flip of the story, then he goes, your sister's chosen the better way, Martha. I see your stress, but Mary has chosen the better way. You see, there's two kinds of devotion happening by these two sisters. The first is a devotion that is like, I want to be seen to do everything I can to like do stuff for God and make sure like I'm seen, and she's stressing about it. She wants to get it so right. And then there's Mary, who's like not stressed at all. And her kind of dedication to Jesus is much more of that, like, I'm just here. I'm dedicating my time and my heart to just relationship with Jesus. And what I said at that meal, and I want to say the same here, we're all Martha, right? We're all busy in life. Either if you come to church, you might be busy serving. But in a sense, we're all like busy serving in tons of different ways. Serving family, serving loved ones, and serving, busy. And that's cool. That's appreciated. That's important. It's important to do things. The purpose of the story is not to say, sit around and do nothing. It's more to say, like, do you see these two kinds of devotion? Like Martha was choosing activity and working and trying to show Jesus how much she was valued by him. As for Mary, this other kind of devotion is much more, Jesus, I just love being in your presence. So we're all Martha. We're all going to be busy, do things. And what I want to encourage us, as I encouraged the group last time, is tend to your Mary. You're all Martha, but tend to your Mary. Be mindful that we're going to be drawn along by the current and the speed of life and society. And I think that what Mary shows us is this idea of devotion where she's slow enough and still enough to actually capture something of the goodness of God. It's so easy just to kind of speed along and kind of miss it. One of the things I want to say, if you're a senior or single or youth, married couple, it's okay to be Martha. It's okay. The story isn't like, boo, Martha. The story is like, do you see these two kinds of devotion? And it's okay to accomplish things. And if you're a business leader or you teach in a classroom, it's good to put, a level of investment in that so the thing is successful, but don't find your identity in it. Our identity is in our primary purpose in relationship with Jesus. And for some of you guys, you're like, be Martha? I'm not, many females in the church, you've been told to be like David, Joshua, Jesus' disciples, Peter, Paul, and such. So men, I think we can be like Martha. I think we can be like Mary for just a few moments, right? It's so important not to get hung up on finding our identity, on our dedication and our hard work, because Jesus is like, I want relationship. And what these verses do in Deuteronomy, and if you come to church and you know the church to be a place of like rules and regulations, I think what this passage does, it kind of reframes that for you a little bit. And what it says is it's not meant to be about that. And in the end, God, he felt so strongly about that he sent his own son, Jesus, so that we wouldn't have to get stuck in these rules, these regulations. We would have relationship at the heart of our lives. We are going to pray very quickly. The worship team, they're going to come up and we're going to sing another song. And what I want us to do as we're singing this is just to think of like dedicating our hearts to God once again. So if you've been around the church a minute, you guys are, you might know this about worship. It really helps kind of center us on the love of God. If you're new today and you don't feel comfortable singing, then that's really fine. But you might want to just listen to many people in the room. And what we're doing as we sing is like we're dedicating ourselves afresh. We're saying to God, I am about relationship with you. That's my primary purpose. And I just accept it. As I sing, my heart goes out to God. He responds. And so why don't we stand together and we're going to sing a great song that just helps us come back to God with the right kind of dedication.